Today, we are going to talk about the single most important literacy skill for kindergartners to develop. And this skill is so important in that the research indicates that it's not only the most reliable indicator of literacy success at elementary age, but also in terms of its validity. When we talk about this skill, we're going to understand why having this skill mastered is so important in the process of learning to read. So what is the skill? The skill is blending. What is blending? Blending is when you can take separate sounds and blend them together to create words. So for instance, the word dog. If I look at the word dog or hear the word dog, it would be d, g. I would be able to take those three sounds and blend them together and read the word dog. This is known as blending. Blending is a very important foundational skill, and the research indicates that it's highly predictive of children's literacy skills a few years later into elementary school. So we want children at the kindergarten level to be master blenders. The problem is, however, that many of the children that we work with communication impairments also have problems with executive function. So executive function is going to directly impact the child's ability to blend sounds together and create words. That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the three aspects of executive function and how these three aspects are going to directly impact a child's ability to blend sounds together to create words. So what we're going to want to do at the end of the day is we're going to want to strengthen these three aspects because they're directly going to impact these children's ability to learn to read. So let's talk about the three aspects of executive function first. I got these from the godmother of executive function. Her name is Adele Diamond. She is a fabulous neuroscientist, a wonderful researcher, a wonderful speaker. If you ever want to look up one of her TED Talks, you're going to love it. And she talks so much about the importance of interventions for executive function, not only working on the brain, but also working on the body. And the ones that are most effective are the ones that are going to challenge the brain and the body at the same time. She refers to these as mindful movement interventions. So that's going to be another topic. That's going to be another podcast. And I obviously couldn't agree with her more. She's right on about that. And the neuroscience doesn't lie. It shows as well that if you want to create change in the brain, you've got to focus on not only the brain, but the body too. So let's get to today's topic and her three areas of executive function and how she defines them. The first area of executive function she talks about is known as inhibitory control. I'm hearing this from a lot of elementary speech language pathologists that this is a skill that the kiddos are lacking. It's that ability to focus, the ability to ignore the distractions and the impulses of the environment around them and to stay on task. To stay on task and to make decisions wisely and involve the distractions and ignore the distractions, ignore the distractions. This is known as inhibitory control. This is a skill that many of our kiddos are struggling with. And as a result, the idea of first looking at, for instance, if they're going to look at the print, looking at the orthographical print of the word dog, for instance, D-O-G is difficult for them because of all of the environmental distractions and perhaps a compromised sensory system in which they may be taking in too much information or the information may not be processing well. We have a lot of that as well with their kiddos today. That's resulting in poor inhibitory control to focus on the words themselves. Or if they're hearing the word and they can't focus on d, g because of all of the distractions. It's that lack of inhibitory control. So at the very basic level, if you're not able to attend to the stimuli, either visually or auditorily, then it's going to make reading very difficult. So the first year of executive function, inhibitory control. If you don't have that foundational skill, it's really going to affect your ability to blend sounds together to read words. The second area that Adele Diamond talks about is working memory, the ability to hold multiple pieces of information in your brain and manipulate them. So when you read, if you're reading that word dog, you have to remember those 3 sounds, and then you're going to have to manipulate them and sequence them and blend them together. That's working memory. So a lot of our children have problems with executive function and working memory. And what they tend to do is they'll see the word dog, and instead of looking at all of the sounds in the words, they might look at it and say dot. They might look at it and say dad. They're just looking at the D sound, and their working memory is stopping there. And they're guessing all of these words that begin with the letter D, or maybe begin with the letter D-O, because they don't have the working memory to remember all 3 sounds in the word, or to read and attend to the 3 sounds in the word. So their ability to blend is impacted by their working memory, not being able to remember and chunk pieces of information and manipulate them. In this case, sequence them and blend them together to create words. So the third area that Adele Diamond is going to talk about is that flexibility, cognitive flexibility. So sometimes, for instance, if we're looking at the word cat, okay, we look at the word cat, C-A-T. That word is going to change when it becomes cake, C-A-K-E. However, the child looks at the C-A and they say, that's cat. I know this. And you say, no, no, no. The last sounds in the word have changed. You need to change what you're doing with the word. It's no longer a short A. It's a long A now because there's an E at the end of the word. So this short vowel, cat, has changed to cake, a long vowel, because we have an E at the end. So do you see all this cognitive flexibility in which you have to think that the vowels, the A sounds are changing on me because there's an E at the end of the word? I also have to change because the last letter is a K instead of a T. So that changes the word as well. And the way these children with the lack of flexibility, cognitive flexibility, the ability to take in new information and change your thinking as a result, changing that short A to a long A because there's an E at the end of the word, for instance. You're going to see this with these children in that they're going to insist that the word is cat. They're going to have a very hard time in changing their thinking and changing that short A or a cat and into an A because there's an E at the end. So with cognitive flexibility, you change your thinking when you get new information. So these are children that it will seem like they're being stubborn. And you're like trying to explain to them, no, the word is different now. It's this way. And you tell them the rules and they just cannot adapt. And it's like, why are you so stubborn? It's not that they're being stubborn. It's that they lack the cognitive flexibility. So I showed you how executive function, in those 3 areas of executive function, if you have difficulties in any of these 3 areas, your ability to blend word sounds together, to blend letters together, to read will be significantly impacted. And if this foundational skill of blending is impacted at the kindergarten level, the research indicates these children are going to struggle throughout elementary school. So this is an area that just gives us a peek into the future. And we get that peek into the future, we know how we can create change early on by strengthening the skills that matter. What we know about kindergarten and blending and how important that is, and that blending requires these 3 executive function skills, tells us we want to strengthen these executive function skills at the preschool level. By doing so, there's going to be a domino effect in which these children are going to become better at blending. And as a result, they're going to become better at readers and comprehending language later on, because they're going to be more skilled at reading. Then those higher level skills are going to come more naturally as well. So let's take this information, let's roll up our sleeves, and let's change the world and make it a better place, one child at a time.